A look at another important story that we're covering this morning. This is the California Public Employees Retirement System, known as CalPERS. CalPERS is coming under fire this morning from Indiana Congressman Jim Banks. He is calling for the CIO, Chief Investment Officer of CalPERS. That CIO is Yu Ben Mang. He wants him to be investigated for his, quote, long and cozy relationship with China and the fund's investments in Chinese companies. Joining us right now on the phone is Indiana Congressman Jim Banks this morning. And Congressman, it's good to have you on the program this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So CalPERS, he has worked at CalPERS twice, the Chief Investment Officer. Tell us the crux of your calls that you want him ousted.
Yeah, well, this is really incredible, Maria. We found out that $3.1 billion out of CalPERS, the largest state pension fund in the country, has been invested in 172 different Chinese companies. Now, that's not unusual in and of itself, but what is unusual is that many of these companies are companies that we've blacklisted that make Chinese military equipment or are responsible for technologies like Hikvision, which is the equipment that's used by the Chinese for surveillance on the Uyghur Muslim population that they've been abusing in their own country. So the more that we've dug into this, the more troubling it becomes. And it's another significant example of the type of nefarious activities that the Chinese Communist Party is up to within the United States of America. And we learned that Mr. Meng, who is the Chief Investment Officer of CalPERS, was actually recruited to this position by the CCP through something called the 1,000 Talents Program. Now he's denied it since we've raised these concerns to the very liberal Governor Newsom in California, questioning why this individual would be in charge of making these investment decisions to begin with. But we found Chinese newspaper articles that take credit for him being in the position that he's in currently. We're calling on Governor Newsom to do something about it. I mean, if this were up to me, I would fire him immediately because of these suspicious ties. But while we finally have a president in the White House is doing something about the China threat, what we're finding around the country is we have a lot of left-wing governors and other government officials who are actually doing more to entangle us with China while the president is trying to do as much as he can to disentangle.
Yeah, and I don't even know that investors understand what they're buying. I mean, that's another issue. What's the vetting process? These companies that you mentioned, this is the same story that I brought up about 6 months ago when it happens to be the MSCI index, because you've got the thrift fund. This is the fund, the 401ks of military men and women past and present, and there's a proposal to have 10% of that fund, $50 billion, mimicking the MSCI index, with many of the same companies. They're blacklisted, and then we're going to have our military men investing in the companies that are actually building the very equipment and weaponry that the Chinese could use against America?
It's very confusing. I mean, once again, as the Trump administration does so much to find the first administration in my lifetime to address the China threat, we have bureaucrats within the government, like you're talking about the thrift savings plan,
That's
which
right.
is all federal government employees invest their money in the thrift savings plan. And recently, not the Trump administration, but bureaucrats who run that plan opened up the door to invest these funds in the same manner as CalPERS, the California pension plan. So these are troubling examples.
Do these people understand what they're investing in? You know, the equipment that are used to track the Uyghurs. Do you think that those people who are investing in CalPERS funds understand what they're buying?
Unfortunately, I don't know that they care. For them, it's about the bottom line, and that's what's troubling to me. We shouldn't be investing in the authoritarian regime that we've also at the same time named our strategic competitor or our enemy, as the president has so clearly identified.
Congressman, we've got some economic data coming out live, but we want you to come back tomorrow in person, so we're going to follow up after this. But thank you very much. We understand the importance of this story, Congressman. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Jim Banks joining us there. We're back with the January CPI next.